the great James Dobson, Dr. Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, who I am dating myself by saying that I listened to him back in the day when I was a young bride and young mom, and one of the most important things that I learned from him through his radio stations and books was that boundaries are not bad things. Boundaries protect and keep inside that which is dear to you. So he likened it, I believe, that's my memory from many, many years ago, certainly right. It's like, it's defense on the cliff. Right. It's not a bad thing that you're trying to keep someone from knowing what's beyond the cliff.
Right.
You're protecting them so that danger doesn't befall them.
Right.
If you have obstacles and hardships and boundaries around your marriage, you're going to work harder at making it successful.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned Dr. Dobson as well. I know when I was up, I've talked with Focus on the Family, because Dr. Dobson was very much, strong families, how to rear children. He never really weighed in on the issue of the no-fault divorce thing. We kind of wish that he would have. I called up Focus on the Family, tried to get them to do that. I think it's an issue that,
Well, I think the whole church has backed away from it.
The whole church, this has been a scandal in the evangelical church. I know Dr. Albert Mohler of the Southern Baptist Convention, I've talked with him several years ago, and he's like, you're actually doing this? Because he's talked about the evangelical scandal of divorce. And if you go back even to places like with Jerry Falwell and the moral majority, they would talk about these things, but nobody talks about the fundamental issue of family. And Ronald Reagan used to say, he would say, you pass on your values around the dinner table.
Right, they're caught, not taught.
Caught, not taught. And what did Lenin want to do when he took over in Bolshevik Russia? He wanted to destroy the family, because if you destroy the family, you can destroy society. Because...
Well, Hitler did that as well, with the camps.
Absolutely.
One of the first things they did was round up the kids to camp. And then that was my call to political activism. One of the reasons back in 2015, I saw a clip of Melissa Harris Perry from MSNBC.
Right.
Now more shit. Did I say that out loud? The new whatever they've rebranded it.
Yeah, I've heard of it though.
But she's like, oh, we need to get over this notion that children belong to their parents, and that by making children our collective, we can allocate resources. Code word, follow the money. They want your kids because there's more money by taking them away from you.
And this has a long historical thought. Go back to Plato. And if you trace socialism throughout the centuries and everything like that, that was the big deal. Parents are oppressive. That's why, and Marx and Engels are very specific about that. And then, of course, if your parents are going to be teaching you strong traditional values that may go against the anti-God atheism of the state, well, what we need to do is break that down.
Well, and I've said this, and maybe to the exception of many women, but I'm like, that dad needs to be in the house. And I'm divorced, and it was a casualty of many things, so it wasn't what I intended to have happen.
Right.
But a dad in the house will be the tough line that keeps your kids. You need that. You need both. You need the mom, the nurturing, and not that dads aren't nurturing. And dads have really become great involved and benefiting from the blessing of really knowing their children and raising them. But there's something about a dad that that they're a protectorate of not just wife. One of my favorite statues, I think it's Benito or something. It's a beautiful marble statue from the flight of Pompeii, and they're fleeing the volcano, and it's a beautiful sculpture. Look it up. But the dad has his arms cloaked over the mother, and the mother is cradling the child in her hands. And I just thought, I saw that at the Chicago Art Museum, and it's bigger than life, and it's just so profound in what that symbolizes in each of the roles in that nuclear family.
And I'm glad that you talk about the idea of roles there too, because we know that there are differences between men and women. And I will tell you right up front that my wife, when we have children, I'm like, she did a much better job than I would have done. I was going out working, whatever. But when it comes down to providing and protecting, I would have that role. And together, we should have that role in the household. We should celebrate the differences
and
value them. We're complementary people.
Correct.
And like, so in our instance right now, as you mentioned that you were divorced, I went through a no-fault divorce back in 2012, and I said, this is wrong. It never should have happened. But there was nothing I could do to stop it. And that's when I saw how bad the courts really were. I remember talking to a judge, and I said, you could have stopped this divorce. He said, no, I can't. And, I just can't decide willy-nilly that I'm not going to grant the divorce this day. Actually, he could have. Because what's taking place right now, there are so many constitutional issues. Due process. If you go into a case knowing that you're going to lose, you cannot be meaningfully and substantively heard. There's equal protection. If you both are same participants in the same marriage, you should be treated equally. There's issues like the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act, because as a Christian, I made my vow to God. Now, and we have actually, it's in our Texas government code as well, it's 110003A, or C, I think is what it is. But what it says is that, in our Texas Constitution also says you should not, in anything, overburden a religious conscience. So there should be some protections for me that I made a covenant to God. I took my vow to God. I didn't take a prenuptial because my prenuptial was a vow to God. And if the state is destroying my vow to God for no reason, if there was something that I'm doing criminally, that's a whole different story.
Right.
But this is something that I made a vow to God. And when you do this, no minister can actually marry somebody, honestly, in the state of Texas right now. Because if they say, we're going to be together till death do you part,
right,
it's a lie.
Right.
Because the state will say, you know what? It's funny because the state wants the separation of church and state, but then it interferes in the affairs of the state. And for me as a Christian, I have a duty to fulfill my covenant to God. I have duties toward my wife, toward my children. There are things that if I were to be in a church position, being married is one of those things that would be necessary. Being divorced eliminates me from some of those things. I know a man who I heard about a man, I should say this, was just told about a man by a friend of mine. He said he was a pastor, and the guy's sister filed for no-fault divorce, and because he got divorced, he had to give up his pastoral position.
Yeah.
So now you're impacting that, and he said the guy was so good, never even swore once.
Yeah.
But it was basically, I'm just not happy.